Who were the two men whose decisions would decide the fate of millions? They were Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin, two dictators ruling vast empires through fear, ideology, and absolute control. Hitler believed himself chosen by history. Stalin believed history could be bent through force. Both commanded enormous armies, both ruled through terror, and both were willing to sacrifice millions to achieve victory. But this was not merely Hitler versus Stalin. Their clash would determine whether an entire people would live or be erased. What kind of war was fought on the Eastern Front? It was the largest and most destructive battlefield in human history. From the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea, millions of soldiers fought across thousands of kilometers. Entire regions of Eastern Europe became killing grounds where armies vanished and cities were erased. But scale alone does not define the Eastern Front. This was total war. Death did not come only from bullets. It came from freezing winters, disease, starvation, and exhaustion. Civilians died in numbers that rivaled armies. Survival itself became a daily battle. This brutality was not accidental. It was driven by ideology. Nazi Germany fought for racial domination. The Soviet Union fought for national survival. Each side viewed the other not as an enemy to defeat, but as an enemy that had to be destroyed. This belief stripped away restraint. The front was also dynamic and violent in motion. Early in the war, German forces smashed deep into Soviet territory, surrounding entire armies in massive encirclements. While some battles froze into prolonged sieges, most of the war was fluid, fast, and relentlessly mobile. And above all, this front decided the war. The vast losses Germany suffered here, far greater than on any other front, broke its military power. The outcome of World War II in Europe was decided not in the skies over Britain or on the beaches of Normandy, but here, on the Eastern Front. When did Hitler's unstoppable blitzkrieg turn into a deadly struggle for survival? At first, victory seemed inevitable. In the summer of 1941, German forces smashed across Soviet borders. The Red Army collapsed. Entire divisions were surrounded. Millions were killed or captured in months. By autumn, German troops stood at the gates of Moscow. But time became the enemy. The campaign dragged on. Supplies ran thin. Winter arrived. The moment Hitler failed to end the war quickly, the balance began to shift. By the end of 1941, Germany was no longer winning a short war. It was trapped in a long one. Where were the battles that would decide the fate of nations? The path to the Eastern Front began in the skies over Britain. In 1940, the Battle of Britain shattered Hitler's plan for a Western invasion. Germany failed to destroy the Royal Air Force. Operation Sea Lion was abandoned. Britain survived and became a permanent base for future Allied attacks. With the West unresolved, Hitler turned east. The real decision points lay deep inside the Soviet Union. Outside Moscow in the winter of 1941, German forces reached the outskirts of the Soviet capital. They expected collapse. Instead, they met desperate resistance and brutal cold. For the first time, the German army was stopped and forced back. But the most decisive place was farther south. On the banks of the Volga stood Stalingrad. From 1942 to 1943, the city became a battlefield of ruins. Fighting descended into basements, stairwells, and shattered factories. Entire divisions vanished block by block. When the Red Army encircled the German Sixth Army, escape was forbidden. An entire army was destroyed. From Moscow to Stalingrad, the geography of the Eastern Front consumed German power. These were not just locations on a map. They were the places where the war changed direction and never recovered. Hitler invaded, believing the war would be short. He expected the Soviet Union to collapse in weeks. Instead, he unleashed a conflict that demanded endurance, resources, and adaptation, qualities Germany did not possess in sufficient measure. The first failure was logistics. The vast distances of the Soviet Union overwhelmed German supply lines. Roads were unpaved, railways used different gauges. Fuel, ammunition, food, and winter clothing failed to reach the front. German armies advanced faster than their supplies could follow. The second failure was scale. Germany could not compete with the combined manpower and industrial power of the Soviet Union, Britain, and the United States. Soviet factories were dismantled and moved east of the Ural Mountains, beyond the reach of German bombers. By 1943, the Red Army was producing more tanks, artillery, and aircraft than Germany could replace. The third failure was occupation policy. Instead of exploiting resentment toward Stalin, Nazi racial ideology turned potential allies into enemies. Brutal repression, mass executions, and starvation policies drove civilians into resistance. Partisan warfare expanded behind German lines, draining manpower and resources. And finally, there was Hitler himself. He increasingly ignored his generals. He micromanaged operations. He refused strategic withdrawals even when armies faced destruction. At Stalingrad, retreat could have saved an army. Ideology forbade it. What began as a planned lightning war became a war of attrition, and in a war of attrition, Germany was doomed. How did the Soviet Union survive and then turn the tide of the war? Through sacrifice on a scale never seen before. Factories were dismantled and rebuilt thousands of kilometers east. Women, teenagers, and elderly workers fueled war production. By 1943, Soviet industry outproduced Germany. The Red Army learned. It absorbed defeat and returned stronger. At Stalingrad, it struck back. Operation Uranus encircled the German Sixth Army. Hitler forbade retreat. An entire army was destroyed. From that moment on, the war changed direction. The Red Army advanced westward, relentlessly, at unimaginable cost. By May 1945, Soviet soldiers raised their flag over Berlin. The war of survival was over. This wasn't just World War II, it was the deadliest struggle humanity has ever known, where defeat meant extinction. If you want the full story of how survival defeated annihilation, follow and keep watching.